I'm currently doing an outside lighting job, and of course moisture getting into your electrical connections is something that you just cannot afford to let happen. So in this video we're going to have a look at the Storm Gland from SWA. I'm going to be using this clever little gland to give us an IP68 connection into this adaptable box from Whisker, which I've also shot a video on, so please feel free to check that out. Now the first thing you'll notice about this gland is that at first glance it appears to be almost entirely made out of plastic, which may give you one or two reservations about connecting the armouring to this, either as a CPC or bonding it. However, when we start opening it up, we find most of the familiar parts that we'd normally see in an armoured cable gland in there. You've got this front bit here, the gland body if you like, with this plastic nut around the outside, and at the back of the gland body you've got this cone-shaped part here. I suppose technically I should call that a frustum, but I don't want anyone to take my lunch money. Even that part is quite interesting because on an indoor gland, this part is normally knurled with that diamond-like pattern to provide a solid mechanical and electrical connection. And on a regular outdoor gland, it would be smooth. But we've kind of got a bit of a halfway house here with, I guess you'd call this a ribbed texture. Now with an outdoor gland, you have the additional clamping ring, and that's present here also. Now if that does come out of the back bit of the gland, just make sure that it goes onto the cable the right way round. It's got an internal taper here that needs to match the taper on the gland body in order to clamp onto the armouring tightly. So far, so normal. We know how to terminate an armoured cable. But this gland is all about keeping the moisture out. So how is it achieving that? Well, the trick that SWA have achieved is to look at where the moisture can get in and then prevent that from happening. So moisture is potentially going to get in where the gland meets the box. So there's a rubber washer here that you can see that's going to stop that from happening when this gets tightened up onto the box. But it's also going to get in where the body nut meets the gland body. Now this one must have represented an engineering challenge because this nut doesn't get tightened up to a specific distance inside here and then sit on a seal. It will tighten up to different extents depending on the size of cable you're installing and the thickness of the armourings. But it still needs to be sealed no matter how far in it's gone to clamp onto those armourings. Now for that reason, if you look carefully, you can see that the seal is in the form of this O-ring. It's not on the end of the nut, but rather it sits in a groove here just back from the end. And once you get that to a certain tightness, you can feel it just kind of tighten up as you get to a certain position here. And that's not the nut clamping onto the armourings, obviously. It's the O-ring sealing up the gland. And you can tell that there's still room to go because you can keep going with that. So it's sealed, but it can be cranked up to the right tightness to allow for the varying sizes of armourings. I'm a little bit lost in admiration for that. I think that's fantastic. So we've said the goal with this is to keep the moisture out. The final place that it could get in is along the outer sheath where it enters the gland. Now this next bit reminds me kind of like a compression joint in plumbing. You'll sometimes see people lashing loads of PTFE tape around the threads of the joint, not realising that it's actually the olive that keeps the water where it belongs. Well, it's similar here. It's not the threads that will keep the water out, it's another O-ring, this time mounted inside the outer seal nut. And when you tighten it up, it just compresses onto this part here and then seals up around the outer sheath. So there it is, all the parts engineered to keep water out. It's absolutely brilliant. Let's have a look at how it installs. Okay, so we'll make a start. Getting this done. Get the scoring on that. Let's get the outer sheath off there with a Stanley. Get that one done. Get rid of these. Now, there is always one. There it is. Probably be several on this one now I've said that. So we'll get those off. There we go, nearly there. Last little bundle. There we go. And just that last little one that just needs a little more encouragement there. Be careful, of course, not to damage the inner sheath. Okay, I always like to get rid of this bit first, just to unscore that. Not going into the inner conductor there because we destroy it. Just wipe that off like so. and then it's just a matter of putting the gland on there. Okay, so we'll take this into its component parts, and then we'll get this bit put in here, like so. And because I'm using the earth bar from Whisker on this one, go and check out the video that I made on that as well. It's quite an interesting one. Whether you can use this earth bar on the smaller version of this box, whether that's possible. No spoilers here. You'll have to go and watch the video to find out. So let's just get that tightened up. There we go. That's going nicely. Probably not by hand now. There we go. Okay, so there you can see that first seal coming into play. That's going to tighten up it on the outside of the box and just prevent any moisture coming in. At this point, because I don't want to damage the plastic threads in the box, I like to do up the fixing screw on this earth bar at this point, so that holds that nice and tightly now and stops that from spinning any further, and also gives a good connection onto the brass of the armoured cable gland there. Okay, so we'll get the outer part put on and the clamping rings inside there as well, and then I just need to take off just a little bit of this outer sheath, just 15mm thereabouts, half an inch if you're tuning in from the past. There we go, and then just remove that from the outside. There we go. Okay, so then it's just a matter of getting this inside the gland now, so I'll just get that around. Of course, I'll colour these up with the right colours when the time comes. Give that a twist just to splay out the armour ends. So it's just a matter of just bringing your thing up, making sure that's up as far as it will go, and then we just tighten that bit in. You can see the seal going in there now, so that's nice and tight on there, and then you just tighten that bit up. No problem. Now it's just a funny little sensation actually, because it kind of gets tight as the seal goes in, but of course that is not the full measure of its tightness. There we go, and we'll just get that cranked up all the way on there. And then it's just a matter of doing up this bottom one to seal that bottom one in. So we're about where we need to be with that, which is good. There we go. And that looks to me like a job in the town. Yeah, lovely, very good. And of course there's no shroud required either, which is a lovely effect, so that looks pretty good. So that, I think, looks pretty cool. Just make sure that's nice and straight coming up the ways, and that's that made off. So I think that's a really good armoured cable gland. That is a brilliant bit of kit, rated at IP68, well engineered, and some really clever little tricks in there to keep the water from getting in. And looks, I think, a lot better than the traditional outdoor gland with the shroud all messed up and distorted with the end inaccurately cut off. I think it's fair to say that this is not just a storm in a teacup. Thanks very much for watching. Seriously, storm in a teacup? Who writes this stuff? Honestly, I'll be in my trailer. Yes, I mean the van.